20 on me, case emergency. Ain't no cap in my rap. Real I know it's the truck. More profit mean extra. Emerald white out full of pressure. That cereal milk smoking right. But that Obama rent some special. Kansas City, I'm a chief. Shout out to K5 on new one. Country thuggin', I was hustling. I always had it on me. Booming like OJ the Juice. Till a nigga told on me. From now on, it's relentless. Ain't no love, we ain't friendly. If she want me on him. No the law, she get the business. No the law, still the motto. Empire.
Hello. Welcome in. This is Birds of a Feather Podcast with your boy Q City. Now, we're about to summarize our late season push that got us into the play-in. We're going to break down our matchup, pivotal, Wednesday against the Hornets. Then we do some ATL around the league, betting points that give me props, and then a little city talk at the end. So come along with me and enjoy this ride. So first things first, we are in the play-in. And it has been a long road to get here. I'm not going to lie to you. Halfway through the season, definitely didn't think this was a possibility. I mean, prior to the All-Star break, we're 27-31. You know what I'm saying? The squarely behind 500. And it was like a fight to get to 500. We had started getting people healthy. COVID had just straight up killed us. And, you know, we only had one All-Star, which was Trey. After the All-Star break, in the last 24 games, 75% win percentage, 16-8. Ended the season 43-39. You couldn't ask for a better team ball down the stretch. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really came together, understood that anything we wanted to be done in this season had to revolve around Trey being the primary ball handler, primary distributor, and being able to get the job done. I love that they made the switch and put Herter into the starting lineup. I feel that it completely opened our offense. And prior to JC getting hurt, Mans was balling. We finished second in division behind Miami, who, you know, if things play out as we talk about later with the plan, that's going to be our first round matchup. Honestly, we had a shot at the 7th seed, and we had an outside shot at the 6th seed. I didn't think it was overly possible, but we had a legit shot at the 7th seed. I wanted to be a 7-8 seed because that allows you two opportunities. You know what I'm saying? No one plans or wants to lose a game, but you have a low margin for error when you're in that 9-10 game. Love the fact that the playoffs were expanded so we even have a chance to get in, but it just shows how ridiculous the East was this year. You know, we'll get into records on ATL, but when you look at it, the East is better than the West. I started saying this halfway through the season, and I remember arguing with cats at work, you know what I'm saying, trying to get them to understand that, like, nah, bro, like, you've been fed a narrative. And if you actually watch the games, all the stars, all the teams, all the records over here in the East, and the Hawks making it into the playing game is just a testament to the fact that, like, the East is rough and the East ain't really going nowhere. I think I came into the season taking the over under at 50, taking the over under at 45, you know, lost that bet. Took the over under at 45 thinking this was a 50-win team, not realizing that, okay, yeah, we have the world champs in the division and Brooklyn, but like Philly's a good team. Chicago came out of nowhere and then came back to the pack. Same with Cleveland. But Toronto has always been the type of team to muster up wins. You know what I'm saying? They got close to a 50-win season. I want to say 49. And I straight up overlooked Miami. I totally overlooked Miami. You look at that. It's like, okay, those are your top 6. Where are you going to fit in? Where are you going to fit in? Especially when you're not going to win the division. And that's what it looks like going forward. That's what it looks like going forward. The only guaranteed seed out of our division is going to be the division winner because Charlotte ain't going nowhere. The exact same record as the Hawks this year. And the East is tough. The East is tough. We had a 5-game win streak going. Lost a game in Toronto. It was a close game. Missed some shots down the end. Gary Trent hit a big bucket. And we just lost that one. Then, like, our outside chance of getting the 8 seed, the Miami. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, that'll be our first round matchup. Miami has, for the most part, dominated us this year. Hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure they're 3-1, if not 4-0. And they were able to get anything they wanted. Bam closed the game out with a dunk, but it was about a 4-point game. I want to say with a minute 20 left. Came down, missed a three from the right corner, got the rebound, got fouled. Capella made one. And then they were able to come down, hit a tough bucket, got a stop on us on the other end, and then, come down, execute offense properly, get a dunk, and that's game. That's game. You can't come back from it. So when I look at the season, I think first thing is Trey. 28-10, well 9.7, but basically 28-10. You'll hear the stat. He led the league in total points and assists. First player to ever do that in the NCAA and the NBA. Trey's a monster. Trey's a monster. This isn't a question of the trade anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get into that in the city talk. This ain't a question of the trade anymore. Like, Trey is bona fide superstar. Gonna do everything he needs to do for the team and been further in the playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, Trey is the engine that keeps this team going. He's the straw that stirs the drink. Like, Trey is what we need on this team. Point blank, period. Without him, we aren't a viable team. Like, we're not a viable option at all. He's a ridiculous percent of the offense. Would I love for him to get a running mate that could kind of, like, I would love Trey's numbers to go from 28-10 down to about 24-8, 24-9, and have a bona fide on the ball scorer from the wing position. I would love it to be Hunter, but I don't think he's ever going to be there. Herder just seems to be a catch and shoot guy, although he is amazing at it. He's got very, very little secondary playmaking skills when you take him off the court, and the Bogey Herder lineup is kind of funky, but the ball doesn't stick. So I'm not overly mad at it when you give Trey his breaks and you have Bogey and Herder in the backcourt. But yeah, no, we need a dominant playmaker either on the wing or on the block. Capella's not it. He's a rim runner. He's a finisher. He's a defensive force. And he's not a bad player. He fits perfectly with Trey. So does JC. JC developing that 3-point game, mainly from the corner, because, like, I don't like his elbow jumper. I don't like his wing three. I don't like either one of those, but his short corner threes, developing that part of the game, blossoming into not an elite scorer, but a decent scorer, a 17, 18 point a game type guy religiously is exactly what this team needs. We definitely miss his scoring because TLC ain't it. TLC has got to get off the court. Same thing when Jang was on the court earlier in the season. You recognize the weak link on offense very, very quickly. Like, you're definitely in the scheme of understanding that, like, hey, this guy cannot score and he's a liability to the team. Not he's a bad guy, you know what I'm saying? And his defensive capabilities, super helpful, but routinely misses open shots, routinely, and not a great finisher, which is interesting for his body type. He's not like a really good finisher, but regardless. Capella, 11-12. Like I said, rim runner, finisher. He's not a super offensive threat, but he gets tons of rebounds. Bogey to the bench was a revelation. Like I said, I love that move. I was calling for it prior to the All-Star break. We needed Bogey to come off the bench and Herder into the lineup, just because Trey and Herder play perfectly off each other. Perfectly. And so having Bogey, who kind of needs a couple, he definitely can catch and shoot. Let's not trip. Bogey's lights out in that regard, but he can mess with you off the dribble. He can dribble, drive, penetrate, and he's got an eye for passing the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, when him and Herder are on the floor together, the ball doesn't stick. Both of them have an eye for making the open pass. So I'm definitely glad that Coach Nate finally made the decision to put him on the bench, Herder into the starting role. if you just look at the raw numbers, and that's why like people lose me sometimes when you just look at the raw numbers. Herder's averaging 12, 3, and 3. Herder might be the third most, possibly second on certain nights, but at worst, the third most important offensive player for the Hawks. His floor spacing is ridiculous. Like, he's scoring 12 points a game, but he's doing it on about 38% shooting from three. Like, he is bombs away. And if you see him shooting, one of Dominique's favorite saying is, "Oh, he pulled that from the parking lot." And, his partner will be like, and he's pulling up from Marietta. Like, you'll hear him say like just crazy stuff because Herder doesn't allow the defense to, one, bunch up around Trey, but two, hug the 3-point line. You have got to stretch your defense out further because Herder pulls up from the logo just like Trey. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily straight from the logo, but his wing threes are impeccable. And he almost never gets off a clean corner shot, but when he does, it is money. Like, I love his game in the starting lineup because it opened the game up for Trey. And we haven't overly felt the pain of not having JC on the floor because Herder's in the lineup. Hunter, he's a work in progress. I love the fact he was able to play 53 games this season. That is a marked improvement in health. Like, you still missed about 29 games, but compared to last season, you did great. And compared to his rookie season, he was only off about 10 games, his rookie season pace. And so, we just got to get him healthy and staying in the lineup. It has been a challenge, but when he's on the floor, he's a game changer. I've watched him step up on Durant over and over and over again. And last game notwithstanding, Durant went like God mode, scored 53. Trey matched him point for point. But you look at our Nets earlier, our earlier matchup versus the Nets this season, he stuck KD for a good bit of that game, held him to, I want to say, like 26 or 27 points, but made KD take a bunch of contested shots and a lot of shots, which is, not KD's MO. You look at a lot of protected wing scorers, we got guys who will step up defensively and are long in Herder and Hunter, and it allows our defense to stretch, especially with Trey being a bit of a defensive liability. But I've seen him. He's trying this year. He is trying this year on offense. And so, once we get JC back, hopefully for this playoff run, we'll be a significantly better team. That finger is just taking some time to heal. And there's talk that he'll be back, for the playoffs. Hopefully we'll see how it goes. But I think it really just boils down to the fact that this team came together and made a push to put themselves in a position to be in the playoffs. And had you talked to me, hell, even about a month and a half ago, I would have been very skeptical as to the team's ability to do so. But Coach Nick pulled them together. They came out and honestly not saved his job because I don't necessarily think it was in peril, but the seats not as warm going into next year at all. I think everybody had expectations of this team, understood a bit that they were going to come down to earth because, let's be real, we got to the conference finals by epic meltdown on the 76ers. Like, hell, the whole team blew up. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a whole different team because of losing to us in the conference semis. We got to the conference finals from an epic meltdown. So I don't think anybody was overly expecting conference finals or NBA finals this year. And to be honest, I was talking to a friend, and hell, I can mention him, Greg, because y'all have heard of him before, and at some point we're gonna get him back on the pod. We're talking about the stages of a rebuild with the team, and I was telling him all organically built championship squads follow the same blueprint. You build, you grow, you go further than you're supposed to go, then you lose around earlier than you're supposed to. Then you're a true championship contender. You stagnate around the during that window. The true championship contender is where you'll be making the finals or consistently making the conference finals, possibly win the title if everything falls into place. The next stage is you stagnate in the second round for a couple years, blow it up, rebuild, cycle continues. If you're an organically built squad, usually 9 times out of 10, you follow that route. You could literally just look at last year for the Bucks. They spent those times building with Jason Kidd. You know what I'm saying? They grew to a certain point, then they fired Kidd. You go further than you're supposed to. They went to the conference finals, lost to Toronto 4-2. You come back the next year and you lose around earlier than you're supposed to. They lost to Miami. Then they became a true championship contender. They won last year. They're legit contenders this year. You know what I'm saying? And eventually the team will get kind of old. They'll stagnate in the second round for a couple years, blow it up, rebuild. That is the cycle. You could look at the Warriors. You could look at, to an extent, LeBron has kind of messed it up because where he goes, they become true championship contenders. But most organically built squads follow that model. You know what I'm saying? Look at the Pacers that challenged the Heat during LeBron's run. They were a true championship contender. They consistently made the conference finals. You just lose. You know what I'm saying? The Kings versus the Lakers. You just lose. But when you're building it from the ground up, it takes a couple years to build. You take a couple years to grow, and then you make it further than you're supposed to. And I honestly and truly believe we're made it further than we're supposed to, and now we're going to lose around earlier than we're supposed to. I honestly believe coming into the season, any and everyone would have firmly been okay with the second round exit for the Hawks. The way things are standing, I see us losing in the first round this year if we make it to the playoffs. It doesn't mean, I'm not a true fan or want my team to succeed. Miami's been a terrible matchup for us. And God willing, we make it to the playoffs, that's going to be our first round opponent. So it's a matchup. It's a matchup type situation. I definitely see us being a championship contender in the next couple of years. It just might not be this year. We need a couple pieces, definitely need a secondary scorer, but I love the grit this team showed in pulling together this year. Hey you guys, it's your boy Q City. As you know, I love Atlanta. Its teams, its venues, but more importantly, its culture creators. 15, XV like the Roman numeral, is a brand line dedicated to capturing the essence of the city. Their gifted artists have clothing that not only show their support for the thriving Atlanta teams, but also show their true talent. Black created, owned, and operated, 15 has a special offer for Birds of a Feather listeners. Go to 15.weebly.com and type in promo code QCity15 to get 15% off on your first order. That's QCITY15 for 15% off on your first order. 15 FIFTXVN.weebly.com. Excellence is waiting for you. Now that we're through, ball washing the team, let's talk about this playing game. Now, Trey played all 4 games this season, but we're 2-2 versus Charlotte, including one embarrassing ass loss when they didn't have LaMelo, and I want to say they didn't have either Bridges or Plumlee. It was a stupid loss. It was terrible. And I think we were a game away from 500 when we lost that game. It was like 130, 127 or something like that. It was super high scoring. Really pissed me off with that game. But anyway, 9 seeds, so we got to win 2 games this week. Back-to-back, 1 game Wednesday for the chance to play on Friday, for the chance for our season to start on, postseason to start on either Sunday or Monday, depending on how it goes. Both teams were 43-39 this season, identical records, 2-2 versus each other. Let me show you how identical it is. They have the exact same, almost the exact same record. Like the Hawks were 9-7 versus division. The Hornets were 8-8. It is mirror images of each other. Both teams have a dynamic point guard, hyper athletic fours. The difference we have is we legit have shooters at the wing, and they are kind of peacemaking it together at the wing. Their backups, their bench mob is amazing. Whereas we've got to match that firepower. when we look at it, LaMelo is a problem for most of the league, but actually he plays horrible against the Hawks. He has posted 32% from three and 35% from the field. Guys, he's making like 18 points a game, and I want to say like 6 or 7 assists, but his slashes are terrible. Bridges is usually the one who has big games. 26 per night against the Hawks on 58% from the floor. Plumlee is punishing us inside. He usually has Capella's number. They struggle with floor spacing, but when you're getting it in layups, you don't overly have to do too much on the perimeter. For us, Trey still averages 20 and 10, but he's 37 from 3 and 38% from the field. He has trouble getting in the lane versus the Hornets. Even though LaMelo isn't like an all-world defender, he's long. They have times, not all game, you know what I'm saying? They don't try to wear him out like that. But they have times where they could stick LaMelo on Trey. We don't have that luxury. Mainly because LaMelo can get by Trey almost anytime he wants to, just because he's long. He's, 6'7", 6'8" frame. He very tricky with the ball, has an array of finishes. He can get by him. Trey, he's very diminutive, 6'1", you know what I'm saying? He can shoot the lights out, but he's not really overly blowing by bigger wing defenders that they have like that. Now, what does help us, Hayward is out this game. He's going to continue to be out, and we might get JC back. It really just depends. I honestly believe that he wouldn't come back until Miami. And just to be real, you know what I'm saying? I'm a huge team guy, and I love the team. You know what I'm saying? But like, these are people. If the Dwayne Haskins situation taught us anything, it's that like you really got to look at people as people, not just sports heads. And coming back for the team for a chance to win a game is amazing. You know what I'm saying? And it's really admirable. But coming back for the team and then losing a game and possibly setting back your summer rehab because an injury that did need surgery now does need surgery, I wouldn't necessarily advise to do, just as somebody who, is part of his team or even the team doctors. Like, if they're able to get past Charlotte and then able to either get past Cleveland or Brooklyn, okay, by all means, come for the playoff push. But if it's just in terms of like, you got to go all out just to get in, I don't think it's the best move. It's just to being honest. So I'm counting on not having him this game or the next one. If we got to utilize Capella on the offensive end with rim runnings, he actually has some of his lowest scoring outputs versus Charlotte this year. So obviously they're cutting off dribble drives to the rim and his easy finishes, and he doesn't have the rebounding edge that he usually has because Plumlee is just as athletic as Capella. Pogo stick gets up and down pretty quickly. We've got to utilize Gallo's shooting. Gallo is key. When he could bring Bridges, he could bring Oubre and Harrell out of the paint and towards the perimeter. It allows for slashers, drivers, cutters, and Gallo can knock them down. He's not as athletic as he used to be, but he could definitely get the job done. This should be a win. It should be a win. I'm counting on it being a win, but I think it's going to be a hard-fought game. Charlotte seems to match us pretty evenly, and the Hawks have, huge expectations for the game. I think we're 68% favorites. We're plus 115 or plus 120. Means you got to bet $120 to win 100. So, we're pretty odds-on favorites. That being said, I don't think that this is just going to be a walkover, cakewalk type of game. It's at home, which is super helpful. Depending on my lovely, amazing wife, I might be at the game. But regardless, I think that this is going to be a tough one. But looking forward to it. It all comes to head tomorrow night. Hey guys, Q City here. Me personally, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. But the one thing that's always held me back, not having my credit right. Credit is super important, especially where we are in life. Go to CourtneyHagans.com to get your credit right. Bad credit ain't cute. CourtneyHagins.com. That's Courtney, HAGINS.com. Use promo code QCity15 to get a free consultation. Now, for some around the league, ATL, we're going to look at the matchups that are soon to be set within the league with for the playoff seedings and pushings. And then we're going to kind of look at some teams that are already, looking toward the lottery. We're going to look at both conferences and get, just some highlights and news from around the league. Miami has a chance to play Brooklyn, Cleveland, Atlanta, or Charlotte. They have an option to play all four teams because all four teams have a possibility at the 8 seed. Boston can only play either Brooklyn or Cleveland because Atlanta and Charlotte don't have an option for the 7 seed. I think anybody who thinks Brooklyn's going to win that game and end up facing Boston, and then the winner of Atlanta Charlotte plays Cleveland for the right to play Miami. That's how I think it's going to shake down or go out. And we'll on Friday, it'll probably be a Saturday pod. It'll probably release on Saturday because the game is Friday night. But at that point, we'll be looking down for what the breaks and what the matchups are going to be. And at that point, we can look as to who's going to move forward, who's going to get bounced in the first round, et cetera, et cetera. The 3-6 matchup, Milwaukee versus Chicago. Division rivals. Milwaukee has owned Chicago for a good part of this year. DeMar DeRozan goes bananas. But if you look at the team, Ball has been out for a good portion of the season. They shut him down for the season. LaVine has been playing with a messed up knee. And kind of like I just talked about with JC, for him, I understood it. For the option to play in the playoffs, be on the big stage, try to keep his team afloat. But they're talking about like he's been playing with extreme discomfort for the whole second half of the year, basically. And now you get to the playoff times, you didn't get a top 4 seed, and there's a good chance you're going to get bounced in the first round and have your summer setback because you're going to have surgery on that knee. So DeMar DeRozan has had crazy games this year, but I honestly believe Milwaukee wins in like 4 or 5. That's going to be a quick series. Wrap them up, put them down, because they've been killing them all season. You look at Philly versus Toronto in the 4-5 matchup. Toronto is a surprising team. I don't think they have enough. Just completely honestly, I do not think they have enough. Nick Nurse is a good coach, but no one sees Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet beating Philly. Now, Matisse Thybulle can't play in Toronto. Vaccination status. You know what I'm saying? Hey, whatever, do your thing, bro. I don't think that's an excuse at all. Philly's the far better team. And James Harden needs this. He needs to show up to show that he's worth anything that they gave up for him. You look at the West, Phoenix has a chance to play Minnesota, the Clippers, the Pelicans, or San Antonio. No matter who they play, they're going to knock them out in They're going to knock them out in 4 games. Phoenix is on a mission. I think we're on a collision course for Phoenix-Milwaukee in the finals again, but we'll get to that when we do playoff matchups and whatnot. Memphis at the 2 seed has the chance at Minnesota and the Clippers. I personally would like Minnesota to win Tuesday night so they could play Memphis. I think that'll be a really, really fun series. Edwards and John Morant were 2 some high flying, exciting players. Cat gets a chance. I think that series goes 6. You know what I'm saying? So you get a chance, some extra games to see some people. And then I think that out of the Pelicans and Spurs, I see the Pelicans probably winning that game. Then I don't see them beating the Clippers. And it'll be Clippers versus Phoenix, a repeat of the second round last year. Or no. Was that the conference finals last year? Yeah. Repeat of the conference finals. And, no Kawhi. Pretty much the same outcome. They'll be in and out pretty quickly. Even if Kawhi comes back, I don't think he'll be in basketball shape coming off a torn ACL. It's wishful thinking. And if I was Kawhi, I wouldn't even put myself in that position to play. Jumping straight into playoff intensity, just to ultimately probably lose in the first round. Phoenix is a buzzsaw to the West this year. I don't think people really understand how good Phoenix is. Phoenix is like Miami is, I want to say 3 or 4 games clear of Boston. Phoenix is 8 games clear of Memphis. Like clearing away the last team that was like 8 games clear was like, wasn't that like the 15-16 Warriors? You know what I'm saying? And the Cavs, where you just knew far and away, like, no, these are the best teams. It ain't close. It ain't close. You got Golden State and Denver at that 3-6 matchup. I feel sorry for Jokic. He very well might win his second MVP in a row this year. And I think there's got to be a clear criteria for MVP and whatnot. And we'll discuss that more in City Talk. But Golden State should win that. Golden State should win that pretty convincingly, pretty easily. Might go five, but Steph has been rested. He's not Clay anymore. It sucks, you know what I'm saying? But you got to admit it, he's not Clay anymore. But they've got Poole, they've got Kuminga. And what's crazy is the dude they drafted number 2 overall the year before is being outshadowed by the dude they drafted 7 overall the year after in his rookie season. Wiseman might fuck around and be a bust. And I don't think anyone wants to talk about it or say it out loud because, it's too early and he's been hurt and whatever. Yeah, Wiseman might be a bust. Or he just might be in a bad situation. And I think the Warriors are smart enough to know what kind of player he is and maximize his value. I think there's still a lot of tantalization for him around the league because people still, view him in a certain light or whatever. I wouldn't be mad if the Hawks made a run at him just because his type of offensive game. But his timeline doesn't match up with the team, one. And I think that the Hawks will fall into that same category of his timeline just doesn't overly match up. Trey is about 24 years old right now. Wiseman would be coming in at 20 and would probably still need about 2 or 3 years to develop into his ultimate game. Hunter is already 22. So you're looking at Trey being 27, Hunter being 25, Wiseman being around 23, 24. That's not a bad team. It matches pretty well, but I think the Hawks are reaching higher expectations as of now. So if they were to trade him to a team to maximize his value, I'm pretty sure it would be on one of the teams we're going to talk about in the non-playoff teams to get a star. Like, I wouldn't be surprised Wiseman to, in a three-team trade, obviously, because I don't feel like he fits with Golden State. But Wiseman being exchanged and somehow Bradley Beal being moved. You know what I'm saying? Wiseman being exchanged and sometimes Julius Randle being moved. In fact, I feel like Julius Randle would be a really good fit with Golden State. You know what I'm saying? And he doesn't actually have to do anything. I feel like you got Steph at the 1, Clay at the 2. You kind of play light and put Poole at the 2, and then you kind of play light. You put Clay at the 3, Wiggins at the 4, Draymond at the 5, and then you have Randall coming off the bench. And it's either Randall or Poole coming off the bench. But they got to accept that role. But I feel he fits perfectly with that team. I don't think he'd take the demotion, but honestly, I feel like it's a smart thing to do. But Wiseman's got to be moved. He's got to be moved. He doesn't fit that team at all. I would love him. One of the next teams we're talking about, Dallas versus Utah. I would love Wiseman to go to Utah. But either way, I see Denver being wiped within that first round. Dallas versus Utah. Utah gets the shit end of the stick, bro. Like, they really, really do. They have really good regular seasons. Loyal stars, everybody kind of picks on Gobert, but he's great at what he does and what he's asked to do. He just can't do much more than he's asked to do. He's a No, he's a 7'2" guy. He's gonna challenge whatever's at the rim. He gets his fair share of being dunked on, but he gets his fair share of like just rejecting shit out the gym. You know what I'm saying? But when you meet a decently shooting 3-point team and they high pick and roll you and you're playing sag off coverage, like every single time they're gonna shoot the lights out. And no one does it better than Dallas. Dallas is going to run them out of the gym. I see that being a 4-0 series. The only way it might get to 5 if this Mitchell has one of his just crazy outbursts of 45, 48 point game. You know, I don't see a 50 burger from him, but very close. You know, 42, 45, 48 type point games, 3-4 assists and like 6 rebounds. You know what I'm saying? Like he just goes bananas with the scoring. But that's the only way they're getting in. Might get a game off him, but I definitely see Dallas running past them this year, and set up for some exciting second round matchups. Now, you look at the non-playoff teams in the East. You got New York, Washington, Indiana, Detroit, and Orlando. New York, 37-25, stuck in no man's land. They have viable young pieces, but they're not using them. You know what I'm saying? Older players starting, they've got massive contracts. A year ago, there was so much hope and promise as to where New York was headed and what they were going to do. And a year later, everybody's saying the same thing. Like that's the Knicks. Why did we expect anything different? It's the Knicks. You know what I'm saying? And they're right back in the same spot. Bad contracts, not maximizing young talent, and headed head first into a rebuild. Like completely blowing it up. I see Randall's going to be moved within the next 2 years. They shouldn't have paid him all that money. Just straight up, they shouldn't have. Cam is a bust. Not for his talent, but for his willingness to work. You know what I'm saying? And you've got to realize when those type of, we'll talk about it in City Talk, but when those type of things come out, when those type of sayings come out, that's a direct attack on your character. You know what I'm saying? Who you are as a person. And they're being overshadowed by the more popular team in New York, which is Brooklyn as of right now, because they legit have superstars. So the Knicks ain't going nowhere. Washington, yet another season of disappointment. They've got some young core pieces. Bradley does not fit their timeline anymore. And I wish they would understand it and move him. You know what I'm saying? Maximize his time and pieces. But if they're not going to do it, then they're in for another 2 or 3 years of mediocrity. Just completely honest. You know what I'm saying? Especially with, you just looking straight at their division. You got Miami, Atlanta, Charlotte. Them, and the only team below them is Orlando. Indiana, 25-57. And I don't think people who don't really understand basketball understand what kind of season this was for Indiana. Indiana has never picked higher than 10th in the lottery, if I'm not mistaken. I think Danny Granger was like their highest pick at like 10. And they haven't picked above then in fucking forever. Like they are always, they're the definition of a mid-tier team. In fact, they usually always either make the playoffs or directly below at like the 8, 9, 10 spot. You know, they kind of hover between 6 and 10 in terms of seeding at the end of the year. To see them all the way down at 13 is completely out of the ordinary, but it is completely needed. Being in the midpoint is purgatory in the league. And you can make these little cute trades, Paul George for Victor Oladipo, and have Vic for a couple years, and then you trade Victor, you got Sabonis becomes a star or a little bit of an all-star or whatever, and you have some teams or whatever. I love the move they made this year. Trade for Halliburton. They're gonna trade Buddy Hield. I'm not even sure if he's under contract next year, but Buddy Hield's gonna be gone. They got Halliburton. They got Chris Duarte, who doesn't necessarily fit their timeline. So I definitely see him making it to his last year of his rookie contract and then being moved. But they're tearing it all the way up from the studs. They had the most rotations featuring previous G League players this year. This year, they're rolling it. They're playing franchise mode. They're playing franchise mode. Trade all the way, get it all down to the studs, get a guy you could build around, and literally go from there. Go from there. Halliburton, definitely a building block, building piece. He's going to be nice. And he's allowed to grow into this role. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. Same thing Atlanta did with Trey. Don't worry about winning games. Worry about learning how to play NBA basketball in all types of ways. He's a very creative passer. He's got a funky shot, but it goes down. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be really nice in a couple years. But they gave him his team. You know what I'm saying? And on the King side, you got Sabonis, Halliburton, and Mitchell works much better with Fox than Halliburton was ever going to work with Fox, because both Fox and Halliburton needed that to be their team. Both teams won, and even swapping the steal. You know, Detroit. Y'all know Seafoam Greens, the 03 team that beat the Lakers. Pistons are like my second team, man. Like I love them. I got into basketball heavy watching them the year they won. This was season from hell for them. And they're gonna be in conversations for the number 1 pick overall again. I don't think they'll get it. Their odds aren't great. There's about there's only 3 teams ahead of them. Houston, Orlando, and OKC. But yeah, it was a bad season. But Cade got some valuable experience. He didn't miss a whole bunch of games. And this team's gonna come up. This team's gonna come up over time. And then last team in our division, Orlando. Orlando is trash. Like, Orlando's bad, bro. And it's been a rotating door of coaches, GMs, mismanagement of picks. I don't even know if they have a person in the draft this year that's going to make a market change when they draft them. It doesn't look good for Orlando, because most of the draft picks that they made should be maturing, and they're either drafting over them with the new regime, i.e. Mo Bamba, and then Jonathan Isaac, who's been hurt. Then you draft both the Wagner brothers. They just got a glutton of fours. That's why you see Aaron Gordon got the hell up on out of there. And what's crazy, you look at somebody like Aaron Gordon, who is averaging close to 20 points a game. He goes to Denver and he's averaging 12 or 13 points a game. Yeah, he's taking a market decline in what he averages per game, but he is vastly more important on that team than he ever was in Orlando, because he's playing winning basketball right now. They were asking him to like shoot threes and take dudes off the dribble in Orlando and be the guy on a team. What the fuck? Like, that ain't him. It ain't him, bro. And you let him go to Denver, let him play the side role, let him, play off Jokic, definitely be in that 4 spot, legit in the 4 spot, rather than putting him at the 3 spot and letting him get exposed defensively. You put him at the 4 spot and have him guard threes in spots. He is playing super winning basketball. And it just goes to show, you draft the right player, but you put him in the wrong spot, you're going to consistently get trash. You look at Orlando. They got Cole Anthony. They got Markelle Fultz. It's just like an accumulation of talent, but like RJ Hampton. You got guards all over the place, forwards all over the place, and it's a cluster. It's a cluster, and you don't know what to do about it. Yeah. Hopefully they'll never figure it out, though, because having garbage teams in your division allows you to rack up easy wins. So Washington and Orlando, I hope, never figure it out. I hate that Charlotte done figured a little bit out. So you go to the non-playoff teams in the West. The first one, the most obvious one, the biggest name one, the Lakers. Lakers didn't make the playoffs. LeBron legacy, blah, blah, blah. Hey, I ain't doing that on this podcast. It's a waste of time. Like, it's been talked to death. Side note, I wish that NBA media as a whole understood that, like, we love LeBron. We love everything he's done for the game. I'm one of the people who said he's the greatest player of all time. We can debate about it later. I got time for it. No one gives a fuck about LeBron no more, bro. Like respectfully, bro. Like, you had a run where 10 years you made 9 finals. That last finals was kind of fugazi, but like, people still gonna use it. You know what I'm saying? But you had that 10-year run right there. Prior, you 9 years in a row, that year that you didn't make it, you got hurt. You never got hurt before. But people finally experienced the playoffs without Bron, without a predetermined, this player is going to make the finals. You know what I'm saying? And 2019? That was a really fun playoff run. You know what I'm saying? It was the last year of KD and Golden State. He got his Achilles injured. Toronto actually had a shot to make it. It was a fun playoff year. 2020, you won. You go last year, y'all get bounced in the first round. Everybody loved the Phoenix Milwaukee series. Like, it was an awesome series. You know what I'm saying? So no one's really caring about, like, there are so many stars in the league. Do I want LeBron to play with his son? Absolutely. I feel like it would be an amazing moment for the game. I still remember, like, I don't remember because I wasn't actually like there and living, but you know, like it was so cool to see Griffey in the outfield with his son. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is cool. And basketball is one of the few sports where you could possibly, you know, baseball, you can see it. And then basketball is one of the few sports where you could possibly, if you have the right type of body, the right type of person, see it again. Yeah, you're never going to see that in football. You'll rarely see it in tennis just because, you know, just the body wise and what it takes. You might see it in golf at some point. But the point is, it would be an amazing sports moment. But in terms of him being a championship contender year in and year out, real basketball people don't expect that no more, bro. Like, you don't expect that no more. If AD wasn't going to show up, bro, that team wasn't going nowhere. LeBron is not the best player on a championship team no more. And he shouldn't be held to that standard. You shouldn't. Because, like, anybody with a brain understands that, like, bro, he ain't it no more. Like, he ain't it. It ain't it. It ain't going to happen. Like, the run is over. Get your all-time scoring record. Play with your son. That's pretty much all you got left to do in the league. Because at this point, keep it a rack. Keep it a rack. If you don't think that LeBron's the greatest player ever, going to the finals a couple more times as the second, third, or fourth best player on that team and getting rings ain't gonna change your argument in the Jordan conversation. It's not. Like, keep it a buck. It's not gonna change it. No more rings LeBron could get at this point is going to change your mind in that conversation between him, Kobe, Kareem, Magic, Bird. Wherever you got him slotted is where you got him slotted. Because at this point, whatever team you win a championship with, you're not going to be the best player. And if you are the best player on the team, you're not a championship contender. It's just real. You fire the coach, blame Bogle all you want. It's just real. It is what it is. Team old, team's bad. They won 37. They're the most talked about 33 win team that I ever like knew of. No one talks about Washington. No one talks about Washington. You talk about the Knicks because they're a big market, but no one talks about Washington. Barely anybody talked about the Pelicans or the Spurs, who won slightly more games than them, 35 games. No one talks about Washington, who won 35 games, who's in a big market. Barely anybody. Everybody wrote off New York halfway through the season, won 35 games. All those teams won more than the Lakers. And yet they're dominating the news spectrum. It's stupid. They're a bad team. I don't like talking about bad teams, bad basketball. You know what I'm saying? Unless I'm a fan of the team. You know what I'm saying? I ain't a fan of the Lakers, bro. Like, it's a bad season. You look at Sacktown. They had an outside chance to get into the play-in. They kind of mortgaged their future for the win now mode. Didn't necessarily hit. I hate it for them. I feel like they're going to be in purgatory in a couple years because you already paid Fox, got his big extension, got his money. You got Mitchell as his backcourt mate, who's a little older, so he might match the timeline. And then you just got Sabonis this year. You got some pieces in place, but if they don't if they don't next year max out and hit that 7-8 seed, that's it. They'll be looking to blow up, rebuild, start over again. Portland had a terrible season. Dame was out pretty much all year with that ab oblique injury. and I honestly feel like they sabotaged Chauncey's first season there. You know what I'm saying? Whether Dame wanted to be there or not, I feel like they sabotaged it. And they might be looking to move Dame, blow it up, get draft picks, or they might be like, okay, let's see what this team could be with Dame, with a lottery pick that 9 times out of 10 they're going to trade for a player. Let's see what this team could be. You know what I'm saying? The side note, Julius Randle. The Knicks taking a lottery pick for Julius Randle to go to the Portland Trailblazers would be an amazing opportunity. I'm not even lying. That would be an amazing opportunity, a great place for him to be. Golden State doesn't necessarily usually do deals with Portland, but Wiseman or just a good centering force to the Trailblazers definitely would help out that team. I don't necessarily think Wiseman because he doesn't follow Lillard's timeline, but at the end of the day, Portland's got to shake it up, or you got to trade Dame. Let him go. Let him go. I know he doesn't want to leave, but let him go. OKC. This was a rebuilding year. They've got tons of draft picks. They're looking straight up forward and toward the future. So, not mad. You expected them to win 20. I honestly expected them to win less than 24 games, and the fact that they won 24 is pretty good. Houston was god awful this year. They won 20 games, last in the league. You knew they was blowing it up though. They didn't let John Wall play for a good bit of the year. They traded Harden away last year. Like, you knew what was up. They laid it all out on the table that, hey, this is a full-fledged rebuild. They got Jalen Green, they got KPJ. Both those guys are scoring at a really high level, but it just goes to show every bad team has a leading scorer. Every bad team got a leading scorer. So don't always just look at, oh, he averaged 22 points a game his rookie season. Like, yeah, they won 20 games, bro. Like, he's shooting bombs away. He's in a bunch of blowouts late. Like, they don't care about his body like that. Like, you'll see G League dudes come in and average 9, 10, 11 points a game on hella shitty teams, and then, like, cannot in any way, shape, or form crack the rotation on a championship contender. Like, every bad team has a leading scorer. So don't just get, bogged down by the points. Like, hell, just to be completely honest, be completely real. Back to the LeBron thing. That's why him scoring 30 points don't mean shit. Like, him averaging 30 points this year don't mean shit. It did not go to winning basketball. And that's never been LeBron's MO. He's always been a 27-7 and 7 type guy. Now you 38-9 on a losing squad, like, because that 27-7 and 7 always came in winning efforts. You know what I'm saying? And in the last couple years, it's been down to like 25, 8 and 8. Everybody would have took that this year. It means you're engaged defensively, you're engaged in getting rebounds, you're passing the ball effectively. Like, you're chucking and ducking. Like, it was a bad season. Like I said, Tuesday night will be the 7-8 games. Brooklyn versus Cleveland, Minnesota versus the Clippers. Wednesday night will be the 9-10 games. Atlanta versus Charlotte, New Orleans versus San Antonio. And then the battle for 8s, which will be Friday, will be the losers of 7-8s versus the winner of 9-10s. So definitely 100% looking forward to what this playoff season has in store. So now, on to my favorite portion, the betting portion, and give me props. Fellas, I done got off betting bad on the NBA. Definitely about to get back into the groove and swing of things for the playoff season. Gonna get Greg back on the pod. Probably when the playoffs are set, get some betting advice. I've actually taking a pretty new approach to the podcast. I'm going to start having some more guests, some more people from around the city, who have a vested mindset and interest in the teams. Anybody out there, I'm looking for bookies and company sponsors for the betting parts of the podcast and moving forward. So if anybody has any good connections on betting people, betting sites, bookies, anything like that, just hit me up either on Instagram at QCity11 or QCity Media. And then look me up on Twitter as well, QCity11. So like I said, I've completely gotten away from my betting points, and a big part of that is the fact that we have welcomed a new addition to the Hagens family. My man Adrian is my first son. He is here, and he has taken a lot of my time and energy. I want to thank my beautiful wife for, all that she's done to allow him to be here. And he's taking up all my time and attention. He has a cute face. Not sure if it's mine or hers yet, but it's a cute face, and so is usually taking up a lot of my time and energy for sports talk and podcasting or whatever. But I'm getting back on it because I made a commitment to doing this, and I really do love doing it. So like I said, we're gonna get back to the betting points over time, but as of now, I don't really have anything to give me props. Now on to some city talk. This is gonna be kind of a short and sweet one because I know I went a little long in ATL. I like to keep these around 45 minutes to an hour. I know it's a little long. So topic right off the jump. Pride as a GM in admitting when you're wrong. It is very hard for people to admit when they're wrong, and for people to give up on something that they put a lot of time, effort, and energy into. And I feel like that's exactly what Schlink did when he traded Cam for basically Kevin Knox in a bag of groceries. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't an equitable trade in the sense that, like, that trade was only made to get Cam out of the building, out of the locker room. Now, it doubly hurts when you really take into account the fact that Cam was the pick for which we got Trey. Like, we traded Luka for Trey and a pick, and that pick became Cam. So I think, I know me personally, it would be extremely hard for me to look at that trade objectively and to look at those players objectively when I see Luka doing all that he's doing, getting the media hype, getting the fan frenzy, getting all the joys and whatnot, and me looking at it as I personally believe that Trey is, everything that we need to. I feel like that's a fair and equitable trade straight up for each other. You know what I'm saying? People are like, oh, Luka's a generational talent. Well, hey, Trey is doing stuff that has never been done before as well. And both teams are winning. Trey has gone further in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? I firmly believe that's an even trade. And what made it a little bit more even, because you can say that Trey is a little bit better, that Luka's a little bit better than Trey. What made it more like even was the fact that we had another pick for it. And that other pick turned out to be Cam, who was an offensive threat but could not commit on the defensive end at all. You know what I'm saying? And when you get words said about you, like you're not a hard worker, or you don't care about, like coming back from injury, you don't care about committing yourself to the defensive end, you don't care about certain facets of the game, one, it's hard to shake that. It's hard to be a player who doesn't care, playing for iconic coaches like Coach K and Coach Stibbs and Coach Nate, who are very defensive-minded coaches. It is hard to talk to those type of guys and then all of a sudden just go with anyone and be seen as like, oh no, this guy like really cares about basketball. One sentence that was said, it kind of really stuck with me, where it's like, he doesn't like basketball, he likes what basketball can provide. And I feel like that extremely defined Cam and his tenure in Atlanta. I don't love it for him. I hate the fact that like he wasn't able to put it all together for the team. But at the end of the day, I think that I think it was best for all parties involved that he got the hell up out the locker room. And I think that it says a lot about our GM, our management team, our coaching staff, that you saw this guy, you knew he wasn't getting better, and rather than hold on to him, hoping above all hope that he's going to show you something different, you just went ahead and cut ties. You went ahead and cut ties and just, hey, I think you'll be better elsewhere. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to be rewarded on it on some ends. Like they're holding on to Hunter. regardless of his injury issues. But he shows that he cares about ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's trying to get back. He's getting into a bunch of like stress fracture type injuries, which are concerning. But when he is on the floor, he's super productive. He's engaged on defensive end. He plays team basketball. This type of guy you can have around. And I don't think Cam was that guy. When you look at Trey for Luka side by side, it amazes me how much MVP love Luka is getting. He's third or fourth on some ballots, and Trey is getting none of that type of love. When, like it's been said before, he led the whole league in points and rebounds. Now, granted, because of averages, other guys are going to win the points and assist titles, but Trey has been balling all year. He missed a couple weeks for COVID, and I hadn't had a major injury this year. I think he had a couple games you sit out with like a sore ankle or a sore back or something. But he played close to 70 or 71 games this year. You know what I'm saying? You got guys who played 55, 58, 60 games this year. Trey's beating him by a mile. I honestly believe that he has had not an MVP. I don't think he was MVP this year. That's not what I'm saying. But for him to be completely left off ballots, I think is absolutely crazy. Going on to the second point. All-NBA Trey and team awards. Now, Trey's not going to win MVP, but I definitely believe that he's going to be All-NBA, and I personally have him on my third team. Guards behind Luka, Booker, Steph, and Ja. All four of those guys have had significantly better, quantifiable, better seasons, and so they're going to take the guard spots on the first two NBA teams. Steph should be a lock for the All-NBA third team. It'll be a second All-NBA selection on top of his second All-Star season. So, he's definitely rounding into his own and becoming an offensive just juggernaut within this league. And no one really sees it from a little 6'1" guard, but like he is the truth. And he is showing that not only does he belong in this league, but over time he's going to become one of the faces of this league. Then we look at team awards. If I'm looking at my team awards, I think the first thing that I'm going to do is team MVP. Obviously, that's Trey. He does everything for the team offensively. He's going to set his teammates up, score the ball at will when necessary. Definitely more of a vocal leader this year, which I've loved to see. I've loved to see from him this year. Just all around, he's the best player on the team. So team MVP. Team defensive player of the year. Gonna surprise some people, but I'm gonna go with DeLon Wright. Even though he doesn't start, he locks down on coming off the bench. He led the team in steals at 1.2 steals per game, and his PER is actually higher than some starters. Granted, he's playing against lesser competition, quote unquote lesser competition, but he usually dominates his matchups defensively. So definitely team defensive player of the year goes to DeLon Wright. Most improved player, I'm gonna go Hunter. He's active and engaged on the defensive end. He played over twice as many games as he played last year. Even though he only played 54 games this year, he rushed back from injuries. He's definitely engaged. He's knocking down shots. His points per game is down from 15 to 13.4, but he only had a 23-game sample size last year. You know what I'm saying? So the amount of games go up, his scoring average comes back down to earth. But I think he can grow into a 15 to 17 point scorer. And he plays so well alongside Trey. I love him in the lineup. So absolutely most improved player, I'm going to go with Hunter. And then best reserve, I'm going to split between Bogey and Herter. It takes a lot to be a starter and go to a bench. And then it takes a lot to be from the bench and go to be a starter. And it takes even more when money is more than just respect. It's also a status symbol. So if you're being paid like the third or fourth best player on the team and then you're not starting, it could definitely fuck with your confidence and fuck with like your perception of who you are. Bogey hasn't let it happen. He has totally embraced that bench mob unit, bench role, And for Herter, who was holding down early in the year, he has totally accepted stepping up and becoming a starter. I feel like it was an amazing switch. Should have been done a little sooner. Might have had a different outcome for the season. But the point remains that both these guys have accepted their roles graciously. And I believe it's led to a more cohesive unit on both those units. Now on to the third point, and I saved it for third because I know some people just gonna like skip past it, you know what I'm saying? But for me, I just had my first son. But prior to that, I was a girl dad. I got, like strictly a girl dad. I got 2 girls, and like I want them to believe they could take over the world. And so a good part of that is understanding that like women's sports have priority. And the WNBA draft happened last night, so I'm gonna talk about it because I look forward to the WNBA. I definitely want to take my daughters to a dream game this year. Speaking of the dream, they are in a complete and total rebuild. Like, they had the number 3 pick, and they were super aggressive, traded their 3rd round pick, and the number 3 pick overall to get their 1st round pick, to get the number 1 overall pick. They took Rhyme Howard from the University of Kentucky. She is a monster. Forward center, inside, outside, score, a defensive menace. Like, she's going to stop everything at the rim. I can't wait to see her. Can't wait to see what jersey she chooses. And if you don't follow the WNBA like that, you're not going to be overly impressed by what they do. But it's a 12-team league, so they have 3 rounds, 36 total picks. When you look at how they draft, I honestly and truly believe that a lot of GMs and the male sports could learn a lesson from them. So take a team like the Indiana Fever, right? The Fever had 4 first-round picks. 4. 2 in the top 10, and then 2 more at the bottom of the first round. Completely rebuilt their team. They lost 3 players to overseas and 1 to retirement. They're completely rebuilding their roster. You know what I'm saying? And they're doing so with the mindset that, like, WNBA players aren't available for a full portion of their season depending on their European contracts, because the European contracts pay more. So, like, hey, if I got to go over to Russia, go over to Saudi Arabia, go over to wherever and grab the bag, like, that's what I got to do. And I'll be back at a certain point during the season to finish playing with you. You know what I'm saying? Or I might have to take a certain bit of the season off for pregnancy, for just saving my body, because I got, other commitments on European countries, and I might be only available for 15 to 20 games. The point is, they have to get creative with their draft strategies. So they get bodies. They get bodies. And the main point of doing that is to not only protect yourself against any unforeseeable thing that happens, but the draft is a crapshoot. It's a lottery. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're playing scratch offs. There's 100 kids that might be bust that you draft, but you give yourself more bites at the cookie by having more picks. The Fever did it, and I was surprised. New York drafted teammates, did the same exact thing that the Cincinnati Bengals did. Sabrina Ionescu and Niara Sabali both played at Oregon. What's her name? Sabrina, like, everybody talked about her as like being, very close with Kobe, because, Kobe was an advocate for women's sports as well. And she was heavy with Nike playing at Oregon. Her and Kobe got connected. She was very hurt by his loss or whatever, but she was definitely seen as like, oh, she is like the women's version of just a gunner, just a shooter type person. She has been whining away in New York. Like, nothing's happening in New York that is good for her. Now she's got a teammate. Now she's got a running mate. I think wholly and fully, that team is going to be able to make some noise in the playoffs. Atlanta was able to get a pick in the 2nd round. Naz Hillman from Michigan, another forward. Didn't have any 3rd round picks. Like I said, I think that this team is going to be, it's still in a rebuild. In a 12-team league, most all teams make the playoffs. Their playoffs are extremely short. I had a pod earlier where I gave some recommendations for the WNBA, for their season, for, what I would like to see to help build or grow the game. But at the end of the day, it's a summer league. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm gonna enjoy the summer league, the WNBA. I'm definitely gonna try to catch a game this year. I'm looking forward to it. So appreciate everybody who stayed all the way through. Thank you. I'm back on the podcast. Like I said, we got some new stats, new formulas coming in. You're gonna hear a lot of new voices, just not me droning on and on again for the duration of the pod. So look forward to you. Thank you for being here, man.
El Chapo, looking like I hit the lotto. I want a hottie like mulatto. I'm on here and she on Moscato. I'm in them good till tomorrow. I'm a robber for the Neros. Yo, little laws, I'ma put you on payroll. You smell that aroma? Design the air, it's a party, yeah. Papa Corona, she moving the body, she working them heels. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20 on me, case emergency. I wake up early every morning. Thank the Lord and get the bag. Hustle hard, get the cash. Stack first, then I'm showing my ass. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20 on me, case emergency.
My babies, that's who I grind for. That's who I do it for. Like the Navy, that's who I'm toting that iron for. Keep one in the head like a thought, nigga. Yeah, I fuck with Ty, he a boss, nigga. Foot on their neck, I exhaust, nigga. Niggas cross me, so I cross, nigga. No stripper was lit last night. 500, what it cost, nigga. Shit was really legit last night. Had them hoes at the house, nigga. Instagram, Snapchat, Triller. What they say about Jay, he a go-getter. Used to have them fat sacks in the grove, nigga. Late nights, early morning, my dough, nigga.
You smell that aroma? Design the air, it's a party, yeah. Papa Corona, she moving the body, she working them heels. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20